Hey there, everyone. I know a lot of you are wanting to set up as self-employed or starting your own business and not really sure of all the different steps involved. So today, I'm going to go through a list of things that you might consider if this is your plan. Hi, my name's Dee, and through the beauty of our dreams, we are going to navigate the journey from employee to self-employed to business owner extraordinaire, empowering you to find balance in your life, fund your lifestyle with your passion, and ultimately have more time with your loved ones. Each episode will give you actionable tips on how to deal with the issue covered. I'm so happy you're joining us. So it's important to note that this isn't an exhaustive list, and it's also in no particular order, and not all of the things might be necessary for your business. It will really depend industry to industry, country to country. But what I wanted to do here was start to give you a list of things that you might have to consider doing or thinking about if you want to set up as self-employed or working for yourself. Because I know a lot of you are dreaming of the day of working for yourself and not really sure about what it involves. So let me start first off with registering as a company or registering as self-employed. Now, I'm based in the UK, so this is what you have to do in this country. It might vary depending on what country you're in. So please do research what you might have to do yourself. It might be worth getting in touch with an accountant or someone who would know about this in your country. The next thing that you might want to consider, again, based in the UK, is registering with the ICO if necessary. That's the Information Commissioner's Office. So some of you will be aware of all the stuff to do with GDPR in this country, in Europe and abroad. Now, they say that this isn't necessary for everyone, but you might fall into the category of people that are obliged to, or companies or people that it is recommended that you do it. Now, if you Google Information Commissioner's Office, you can actually find a quiz that you can take to see whether you are obliged to register for the ICO. Obviously, there's a small fee attached as well, so definitely look into that. The next thing is to register for public liability insurance, or whatever it might be called in your own country. Again, this will vary from industry to industry, what kind of insurances you're obliged to get, to what amount, but have a little look and see what you feel comfortable with and, whether you think it's a good idea to go for more insurance rather than less. Again, it really depends on your industry. Another step that you would want to think about is to set up a business bank account. You really want to have a way of being able to keep track of all of your business accounts, your finances, and what are your business spends and your incomes. So it's definitely recommended that you keep this separate to your personal bank account, because otherwise it will get very, very confusing very quickly. So there's loads of business bank accounts, obviously, that you could choose from. There's also this new breed of account that is technically not a bank account, but companies like Starling or Revolut, have a look at them. They also have the advantage of being able to give you quite decent rates on different currencies. So if you have, for example, an online business where you get paid in euros and pounds and dollars, this might be quite an interesting thing for you to look at. Another thing that I would recommend you do or look into is finding a bookkeeper and setting up your money system with them early on. Now, you might think that this is something you want to do further down the line once you start bringing in more money or once your finances get too complicated for you to handle yourself. But I really recommend just having someone do this right from the start. Why would you spend all that time doing the bookkeeping and that side of things and preparing financial monthly reports or whatever when you could be focusing on the part of your business that's actually bringing you money? Why not leave it to the experts? Now, as I say, a lot of times people are put off hiring someone, a freelancer, a contractor, like a bookkeeper, because they're convinced that it is going to be just way out of their budget. A bookkeeper will cost you about £15 an hour. And especially in the beginning of your business, they probably won't need that many hours a month. So think about it and compare it to how many hours you would have to spend doing something similar. Another thing I really recommend is finding a graphic designer. You're going to want to have a logo, banners for Facebook and your website, business cards, signs, a bunch of other different graphics, depending on what your industry is again. Maybe packaging if you're producing a product. And maybe you can do this stuff, like with the bookkeeping. Maybe you have the skills and the knowledge to do it yourself. But unless this is going to actually bring you money in directly, I would recommend hiring someone on Upwork or something to do it for you at a really decent rate so that you can focus on the sales side or the bit of your business, like I said, is bringing in money directly. Another thing that you definitely want to be thinking about is which social media you want to be involved in. The last episode was about what social media platforms you should be on and what you should be doing on them. So if you missed that and you're interested, then go back and have a listen. But obviously the ones that you've got, the main ones to choose from are Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Pinterest is on the way up again. So have a little think about which ones you want to do. Which one would work best for the business you are in, the industry you're in, and what you can do on them, having some kind of strategy for whichever social media platform you're on. Because remember, it's better to be on fewer of them effectively than be on all of them under the sun and not really doing much with them, or just, pissing in the wind and posting whatever you think and not really getting any results. Similarly, you want to build a website, and tied into that, you want to have an email platform. So with that as well, you obviously want to have incentives for people to join your email list. So for example, you might create a few free bits of content, opt-ins, that people will receive if they register to join your mailing list. Or maybe you set up a challenge, like a 7-day challenge or something. I have, for example, quite a few little worksheets that people can register for if they're interested in, and they get added to my mailing list. What you'll also want to have is an email nurture sequence. Again, a previous episode is about email automations. So when someone registers to your mailing list, what do they get? Ideally, you want them to get a chain of emails over the next few days, nurturing them and keeping them warm, because they were warm when they joined your list. And the last thing you want to do is for them to cool up because they join your list and then they don't receive anything. So an email nurture sequence will include things like pointing them in the direction of some of your free content and offering them an introductory offer, normally with a deadline, so that it kind of creates a bit of urgency for them to become customers. So have a little think about that. The next thing that you might want to think about is taking professional pictures of yourself and your products. Now, a lot of us are the type of people that will hate this. Some of us will love this, but it's really important to have a nice variation of photos that you can pull out to add to bios, to put on your website. People want to connect with you as a human to human. So get some really nice pictures of yourself. Again, especially of your products. When you sell stuff on eBay, for example, or you buy stuff on eBay, how much of a difference does it make when those pictures are really, really nice, right? So the next thing I'm going to talk about is kind of very adult, but important. So now that you're working for yourself, you might want to think about what your pension scheme is going to be. Whether you are obliged to, by law, provide yourself with a pension. If you're an employee, for example, you might. If you're an employee of your own company, you may have to, or you may not. But either way, you probably want to have some kind of pension plan, right? So if you were employed previously, you were probably, especially if you're in the UK, getting pension contributions. You were making contributions and your company was hopefully also making contributions. So what are you going to do with that from now on? Don't lose your pension because you forget where it is. And do you want to call them up, for example, and ask them to now accept individual contributions to your pension plan? So you would just make them directly to the pension plan. Or do you want to put a hold on that, which, is not really recommended, because who doesn't want a bit of security when they get older? But basically, have a little think about what happens with your pension. One thing I definitely recommend long before you even start setting up your own company is working out a personal budget. How much do you need to survive? And how much would you like to have? And what is the ideal amount? Now, those might be different amounts, right? And then also work out, as much as you can, a work budget. How much money do you need to start up? What are your startup costs? And then what would your monthly overheads be? Now, you will probably have to add to this budget as time goes on and you start learning about more and more expenses, but start having as much of an idea as possible before you even leave your job, because you want to be prepared. And while you're still getting a salary, it can be really helpful to know what you're saving up for and what your expenses are going to be in the future. Another thing to think about is deciding on your event strategy. Are you going to be holding in-person events? Are you going to be holding free events like meetups? Are you going to be holding charged events? Are they going to be group events? Are they going to be one-to-one? Are they going to be small groups? Are they going to be large conferences? So start thinking about this and how it will feed into your sales funnels and getting people to actually buy your products. At the same time, you want to be thinking what those products are going to be and what are your services. And then on top of that, how are you going to price them up? Go back to your personal budget and your work budget to help you decide on your pricing strategy and whether your business model is viable. The next episode is actually going to go into more details about that, so I won't talk about that too much now. Another thing to think about is your free content. So for example, we talked a bit about opt-ins. Are you going to have free worksheets or something that people can register for? Are you also going to make a podcast, for example? And if you are going to make a podcast, then I would recommend dividing up the steps into these following ones. First of all, do an outline of different topics that you can talk on for 20 minutes, half an hour, however long you want your podcast to be. How is that related to make sure you're picking topics that are related to what you're selling. There's got to be some kind of link there, right? Then write the different episodes or write a more detailed outline if you don't want to actually write a script word for word. Then record them. Then make an intro and an outro or hire someone on Upwork to do it. Then edit the podcasts all together. Again, you can either do this yourself or you can do this on Upwork. And then find a platform to host them. So for example, I use Pippa. You might want to also think about whether you need some sort of system for international payments. We talked already about bank accounts and how some of the new accounts, online accounts and so forth, allow you to receive and send payments in different currencies. But perhaps you also want to register for PayPal or Stripe or one of the other systems for receiving international payments. Another thing I talk about in a previous episode, but again, you want to think about here, is scheduling your different days. So, for example, scheduling a monthly social media day where you will schedule all of your posts for the following month, scheduling a monthly money day, scheduling a monthly promo day. Next, I want to talk to you about getting a privacy policy and making sure you're compliant with GDPR. We talked a bit about this earlier, but when we talked about registering with the ICO, but definitely have a little think about who you might want to speak to make sure you're legally compliant with all of those laws in your country. And making sure your privacy policy reflects that and also is compliant to everything that you're obliged to do in your industry and for whatever type of products you sell. You need to look at buying your domain name and sorting out your website. Again, if you can't do this on WordPress or whatever, then find someone to do it for you. I recommend finding someone to do it for you anyways, because while they are making your website, you can be focusing on your sales strategy or your products or whatever's going to be directly bringing money into your business. Next, though, you would want to start collecting images for your website. I already mentioned that you would want to consider having a professional photo shoot, but have a little look if you've got any other images, whether of yourself or just inspirational images or images of your products or any past events or anything that's related to what you're going to be selling, and collect them to have for additional images on your website. Once you've made a plan for your website, a sitemap, start writing the different content for the different pages. Now remember, text on your website, you really don't want to have it large chunks of text. You know how boring that is when you go to a website. No one reads it, right? So keep it skimmable, keep it short, keep it punchy, keep it to the point. Bullet points is always useful because they're very easy to skim. And you can have spaces and options for people to click through for more information. So you can have a really short about me section, for example, and then people can click through to read your CV, which is, for people who are already interested and want to have more detail. I would recommend also thinking of making a basic branding guide. So picking out a few colors, picking out a few fonts and a few comments on languages or how you want your logo to look or where you would want it placed, and start putting together, like I said, a basic branding guide. This doesn't have to be something that you're paying a branding company thousands. Just keep note, like I said, of the different color Pantones, the codes and so forth, the fonts that you might use for headers, for the paragraph, for different subheadings, so that you can have some kind of consistency in your styling. Next, I would start running market research as soon as you start having any ideas about what your business would be. Go and join a bunch of different Facebook groups for entrepreneurs or people in the business, or groups for people who will be your potential ideal clients, and start just asking questions. We've all seen this on Facebook, right? When people just asking random questions, they get loads of replies. So get involved. Start finding out what people's pressure points are, whether you can actually help them with a problem and how you could do that. Next, have a little think about whether you need an online booking system like Acuity. I've talked about these before, I think in the episode about tech I love, but how annoying is it when you have to send about 800 emails back and forth with someone to try to arrange an appointment? A bit of software like Acuity means that you can send a link to people, or they can log into your calendar and they can just book an appointment without having to converse with you back and forth. So it's really time saving if your business involves people booking appointments with you. Next, have a little think about Facebook again. Do you want to do Facebook Lives? Do you want to host watch parties? What is your strategy going to be on Facebook? Facebook Lives are definitely taking off. Watch parties are a new feature, but could they be quite interesting and useful for your industry, your business, to engage with your customers and your audience on Facebook? Also, what you would need to consider is your online storage, G Drive or Dropbox or whatever you choose. They're super useful because they obviously act as a backup. You don't have to worry anymore about your laptop falling in the pool or anything like that, because all of your information is stored in the cloud. And it's also super useful for being able to share certain documents or folders or files with your contractors. So you might be able to share your accounts folder with your bookkeeper or whatever. Just it makes things a lot more easy rather than having to sort of regularly send files through. You just share the folder with them and share things on there directly. Also have a little think if you need to register with Zoom or Skype business, for example. Are you going to be doing consultations one-to-one over the internet, video calls? Are you going to be doing group video calls? Are you going to be hosting live calls with multiple people? I really like Zoom. Skype is also fairly good. Also, you need to have a little think about how you're going to launch your business. Is it going to be a soft launch? Are you going to just sort of start sharing things on Facebook? Are you going to start putting things out there here and there? Or are you going to have like a big launch event? Is that event going to be an in-person event? Are you going to have a launch party? Are you going to have an online launch? What is that going to involve? Is there going to be an introductory, like a launch promo? So have a little think about what that strategy would involve and who that would be aimed at. Like who will be in your audience fairly early on in your business? Realistically, is it going to be friends and family? How will you get them to invite people along who would be more likely to actually buy stuff for you? Are you going to ask everyone to please, for example, try to bring one person who might actually be a customer in the future? What is their incentive to do that? I also recommend doing some network mapping. So what this involves, and you can do it in many different formats, depends how your mind works. You can write lists or you can do it visually, is getting on paper all of the people that you know that might be useful to you in some way. It sounds really Machiavellian, I know, but who will be useful in some way to your business, either as a customer or as a collaborator or as a guest on your podcast or someone to do an event with or someone to come and, to do an interview with or someone to come and speak at an event. Who are all the different people that you might be interested in working with in some way or selling to? And how warm are they? Again, you might do this in like concentric circles if you want to do it visually, or you might make a list and give them a score. Are they like really warm? Are they medium warm? Are they just cold? Like you heard about them and you've never spoken to them, but you really want to do something with them? Think about each of these people and how you can make them that little bit warmer. What is the next step to bring them closer to you and warmer to you? And do an action plan based on all of this. If you've never talked to someone and they've never heard of you, but you absolutely adore them business-wise, you think they're absolutely amazing and you want to collaborate with them in some way, but they don't even know you exist, the first step would be to reach out, send them an email, send them something, something super flattery. Everyone loves flattery, don't they? And have a think about how you can get on their radar. Once you're on their radar, what's the next step? Is it to try to meet them, like going to one of their events where you might actually be able to talk to them in person? So for each of these useful people, have a little think about how you can bring them closer to you and make them warmer to you in order to get what you want from them. One of the really important things once you've done all these different steps and put yourself on these different social platforms is to have a strategy for each platform on how to build your audience. Again, if this isn't your strong point, then have a look on Upwork and see if you can find someone to help you with this kind of strategy or someone who can, who's really good at this. And see about hiring them. Again, it's probably not as expensive as you think. And obviously getting a relevant audience is super important because then you have people that you can actually sell to. And that brings me on to my final point for now, and that is building sales funnels. So first of all, you have to think in your mind, what would be the customer journey? How will I get them to be from a complete stranger to a warm person in my audience, to someone who buys maybe a novelty product, to then someone who buys a more expensive product, to eventually someone who buys a premium product or a subscription or something. What does that journey look like? Do you provide everything needed for every step of that journey? Then you also need to look at the technical side of the sales funnel. What you want to do is set that up automatically, right? So you want someone to join your mailing list, for example, and then they get nurtured with your automatic nurture sequence to buy maybe your novelty product or one of your cheaper products or one of your introductory products or services, whatever it is that you're offering. And then once they've done that, you ideally want to have another email automation or system that then pitches to them the next product, right? And then the next one. And like I said, ideally, eventually you would want them on some sort of membership or subscription where you're just getting monthly income from them. So the technical side, again, maybe that's not your forte. Maybe the writing side of the email chains is not your forte. Again, all of this stuff, if it makes you nervous, go on Upwork, go on Fiverr and see if you can find someone to do it for you and how much that would be realistically. Because I say this time and time again, I bet it's much cheaper than you think and it will be done by someone who's got loads of experience doing it. And it will save you time and therefore money. So finally, I want to talk to you about freelancers that you should hire sooner rather than later. I've talked about this so many times, but delegating is often much cheaper than you think, especially when you think how long you might take to do these tasks that are not in your area of specialization, and how many hours it is therefore taking you away from your area of genius and actually bringing money into your business. If you haven't already, register on Upwork and Fiverr and just have a look at some of the talent on there. Each freelancer has a rating as well, and you can see examples of their previous work. So imagine you need to do your bookkeeping yourself. Imagine you find someone who will do this for £15 an hour, and they need about 4 hours a month to keep your accounts in order. So this works out to £60 a month. Now, let's say you yourself would take 10 hours to do the same job because you're not a professional bookkeeper, so it takes you much longer. And let's be honest, you might not get it right, and you're definitely not keeping up to date with all of the latest changes and regulations and so forth. Now, let's say you're a masseuse and you charge £50 an hour. So those 10 hours of bookkeeping are actually costing you up to £500 rather than £60. Do you see where I'm going with this? Hiring a contractor to do the work you don't know how to do, or you don't like to do, or doesn't directly lead to an income might save you so much money rather than costing you money. So the freelancers that I would recommend you look into hiring sooner than you think is a bookkeeper and or an accountant, a graphic designer to do things like your business cards, letterheads, flyers, opt-ins, etc., a web designer, maybe a virtual assistant to do things like managing your inbox or all the boring bits and bobs that you can easily pass on to someone else, someone to build your email template and your email sequence, an audio specialist for your podcast, for the intro, the outro, the episode editing, maybe a social media manager as well, and an SEO specialist. They might be the same person. So in summary, go through all these steps and see if any or all of them apply to you. Remember, it's not an exhaustive list. So please bear in mind there might be other things that you need to do or you want to do when you're setting up your business. So brainstorm to see if you can think of anything else that you might want to include or do, any other steps that need to be broken down more clearly for you to be able to not feel overwhelmed by them. Number 3, listen to the episode about putting all of this into a constructive to-do list, so that you can break down the projects into specific tasks and set dates to them so that you can just crack on. And number 4, research which of these freelancers I suggest you might want to look at hiring sooner rather than later. Next time, we're going to be discussing how to work out your break-even point and how this will influence your business model and your pricing. In the meantime, come join me on my Facebook page, www.facebook.com/thebeautyofourdreams. Giving up your day job could be the best thing you ever do. Make sure you join us next time on the Beauty of Our Dreams podcast. Thanks for listening.